everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a great game by the Jets, and I know I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it in some of your voices already. Oh, no, another moral victory, all those kind of things. It's not the road I'm going to go down. It's our job to analyze, and what you analyze in this game is that the Jets were able to generate. They were able to put shots up. They were able to put pressure on the Edmonton Oilers. They were able to take two of the top players in the game and make them look, not outstanding on this night. They just can't get results. The Winnipeg Jets cannot get results. And as you hop into my Toyota and we take the opening drive for Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, I'm going to do a kind of play the Uno reverse card on something I was doing at the beginning of the year. I used to do this little segment when the Jets went 9-3 at the beginning of the year about how this Jets team was tough to beat, right? And they were at that time. And the whole, if I look back on the overarching theme of those first 12 games, I kept doing these openings where I would talk about this is how why the Winnipeg Jets are tough to beat. This is how they end up walking away with a game where when I talk about it, it was actually maybe a little bit of foreshadowing in that the Jets weren't playing their game. They weren't playing to their identity, but they kept winning games. If I take a look back on it now, I think my explanation for it probably comes into what I've said about this team for years. They start the season in fifth gear when everyone else is in second or third or just getting started or, starting from a dead stop and kind of caught teams, when they weren't as prepared. And, but what you can see is when I talked about those games at the beginning of the year, what made the Jets hard to beat was the fact that they kept finding ways to escape. And they would do it sometimes with, a good goaltending performance by Connor Hellebuyck. They would do it with the first line doing their thing. They would capitalize on mistakes that the other teams were making or things like that. We're at the Uno reverse portion of this thing because the Winnipeg Jets just can't seem to win and get points. And I know there's, someone had said it in our chat room the other day. The Winnipeg Jets last year were a good team that found ways to win games. This year, they're a bad team that finds ways to lose games. I don't agree with the bad team, although their results are bad. But I mean, I don't think that game would indicate a bad team, or at least that game specifically. Okay. Maybe it's not fair. The Jets are where they are. They've got into a place like this because their results have been, so maybe you can say that it's a bad team, and a team that's finding ways to lose games. But this is just one of those nights where your inability to score is going to, it burns you on this night. It's just quite simply the Winnipeg Jets create opportunities for themselves. They can't get it past a hot goaltender. There's no questioning who wins the Sean Reynolds Award on this night. You finally, on a night where you finally get some depth scoring from your team, Adam Lowry, shakes off the rust and puts one in the back of the net. And that game's right there. And so that's when you need, the goal from the top line. And by no means am I putting this on the top line of the Winnipeg Jets. Because what happened in this game here tonight is it's secondary scoring by the Edmonton Oilers that wins this game. Their top guys weren't going on this night. I'd said to Ken, this was definitely one of the nights where you took a look at Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. And I'll give the Jets some credit for shutting those players down. But I also have seen a lot of Connor McDavid and a lot of Leon Draisaitl over the players the last couple of years. And this by no means was anywhere near their A game, not even close. So it ends up being an opportunity where one of the hottest teams in the league comes to town and the guys that usually bury you are not going. And still the Jets found a way to not come away with those 2 points. An error behind the net by Logan Stanley. All of a sudden that's in the back of the net. Power play goal. It is tough sledding for the Winnipeg Jets right now. And the trick with this whole thing is their game has been rounding into form. For all those out there who have used the Connor Hellebuyck idea of the Winnipeg Jets need Connor Hellebuyck, if anything, for just their confidence sake. The wins aren't coming since he's come back, But there's no doubt about it. The Winnipeg Jets are playing better as a team. They're playing better defense. They're getting better efforts. They're getting longer efforts in those games with Connor Hellebuck back in between the pipes. It's just not turning into results. It's not turning into the points that they need. And it's a team that's just seems to be just stuck in neutral at this stage, no matter what kind of game they put on the ice. They're right there. And so you can choose to look at this a couple of different ways. You can choose to look at this and think that the Winnipeg Jets are building, and it's the line I used before. It's always darkest before the dawn, right? And a lot of times a team that's on a 14-game winning streak has actually been playing really bad hockey in games 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then by the time that winning streak snaps, they go on a bit of a losing streak because they've actually been playing bad hockey for a while, but the momentum or whatever it is carried them through. You could choose to look at this and think that the Winnipeg Jets are putting together the kind of game that should be getting them points. And if you keep doing that, eventually it will start getting you points. And maybe we're seeing the Winnipeg Jets on the front end of the rise, right? The results aren't there, but the game is there. You're starting to get there. You can choose to look at it that way. One of the things that I do find concerning about this, though, is I think the Jets have responded really well to the break, to the time off. We talked about it in the last podcast. They're an older team. Rest is going to be beneficial for an older team. The Jets have to be able to be consistent and stack it again and again and again and again. These last two games, I don't know how much of this is the Jets putting their best foot forward because they had 5 days off and really have used that 5 days to kind of recharge and come bouncing back. It's another good game, I thought, by Jonathan Toews. Looked good in this one. So maybe there's a little bit of that. It is just unknowable at this stage how the Jets are going to carry on going forward, right? I've talked about this in the past. I've been caught saying that the Jets are doing the right things and they're going to build, and then they show up the next game and they just don't put in the effort required. You never know where this team is going. But at this stage right now, the one thing I can confidently say is play a game like that. Eventually, you're going to start getting results. You know how I talked about, in the past that the degree of difficulty for the Jets, when the degree of difficulty went up, they weren't good enough to get over that bar. When it went down, they would just get over the bar. That's how they were getting their points. They're not getting a lot of points these days, but they just played the Edmonton Oilers, a red hot team, put up a ton of shots, looked really good against them, don't get the results. Right before that, they had on the ropes one of the best teams in the league, top 3 teams in the league, in the Minnesota Wild. Same thing, end up not coming away with the 2 points. The degree of difficulty has been high, and they've been showing well in the degree of difficulty. So it could be. And this isn't Renny sitting on the fence. This is me just being quite honest with you. I don't know with this team. I don't know if they're building and they're on the rise and we're going to start turning these narrow losses into wins, because the one thing that we haven't seen from this team this year is consistency. I don't know if they're capable of doing it. I don't know if they have the roster to do it. I've said that in the past. They're doing a better job of playing the style, the blueprint that I said that I didn't think that they could play. Whether they can do this over and over and over again, that to me is the question. Do it. I like their chances of kind of turning things around here. But the Jets are just a big fat unknowable in a lot of ways on this year. And tonight is just another night where that kind of gets pushed to the forefront in my mind. That's the opening drive, the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive. And boy, this is about the last time. If you were going to act on this, now's the time to act on it. This December, it's time to Toyota Jim Pattison Toyota on Region. Lease the 2025 Tacoma 4x4 SR5 truck from just $116 weekly for 64 months at 6.59% with $7,699 down and a $1,500 accessory credit. But hurry, the offer ends December 31st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. Hey, that's it for me. I'm not going to check out of here, but I am going to shut up for a while and let someone else kind of carry this thing. And here's the guy who knows exactly how to do that, the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny.
You're muted.
I don't know how that happened. Going rogue.
Okay.
The Gremlins are out and operating already.
Well, you said you were checking out, so.
There you AI was like, okay, he's out of here, folks. Let's shut his mic down and get moving on here. Got home. The daughters are on break. So they're up, and one of them commented on my tie right away when I walked in, as you had done it earlier
I did.
today. It's a nice tie. It's hard to see it because of this, but of course it is. I got it down on Vittorio Rossi. If you listen, it's hard to get respect from daughters. All you fathers out there, all you mothers, it can sometimes especially when they turn into teenagers, little teenage monsters, it's hard to get compliments from them. So if you want the kind of ties that Kenny will comment on, it becomes a conversation piece, and that you'll even get props from your daughters, those gremlin teenage daughters. Hey, you know what to do. Head on over to Vittorio Rossi down on Corden Avenue. You walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they've got a whole bunch of conversation piece ties that they can slap on you and have that happen. Ken, just one of these nights where it's hard to look at this night and not be happy with the game that the Winnipeg Jets played, other than the fact that there's no time for these moral victories and they need points and they're just not getting them.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, right? Because the reality is that we just saw 6 of the best periods the Jets have offered. Not just recently, but probably over the entire season. But it's resulted in a whopping 1 out of 4 points. And as Scott Arniel was lamenting after the game at the podium, I mean, you can't criticize the effort. You can't criticize the battle, the compete, what you generated, what you were able to do against 2 of the greatest players in the league. But it results in the same end result. And that's something that the Jets can't afford at this stage of the proceedings, Sean. Now, I think what Scott Arniel didn't say, but he must be thinking it. Why has it taken 36, 37, 38 games for this version of the Jets to appear? And it's a legitimate question. And the players are probably wondering the same thing, to be honest. So their issue is they're taking a lot of steps forward, but not like they're stuck in neutral in a sense. But I mean, the template is starting to come, but like you said, Sean, I mean, where that template is going to lead is the big, multi-million-dollar question, because you don't get points for effort, and you don't get don't always get rewarded for effort. So it's a confounding time for the Jets, is what I would say. Lots of things that you would like to see from them if you're Scott Arniel, if you're a member of the Jets. But there's a lot of recurring themes happening, Sean. And another thing that struck me, and I'm thinking it struck you also, but Scott Arniel saying in the post game that for all the strides the Jets are taking, there are still massive moments, like the high pressure situations within the game, the high pressure moments. The Jets aren't rising to the occasion in those situations. You get an an uncharacteristic or whatever kind of turnover you want to call it from Logan Stanley behind the net. Now, good job by Curtis Lazar to apply some pressure, but Logan Stanley, that's a pass you can't make. I understand that there's a slash by Lazar that probably impacts the follow through and the crispness of the pass to Mark Scheifele, but I understand that going to the front of the net can sometimes be a safe zone. Sean, in that situation, it was not safe there. There was no safety in that outlet. The outlet's got to go to the left wing boards there, right? It can't go in front. And again, this is not an excuse, but I'm trying to provide some context. Logan Stanley on his previous shift got caught on the ice, and I'm going to double check to get the exact time, but it felt like it was over 2 minutes, and he was back out there, and he had a brain cramp. It's not only just the legs. We know these guys are in great shape, but sometimes when you get caught out, it takes more than one shift to get the brain and the legs back, on the wire, back rewired, or whatever you want to call it. And they have a mistake that ends up in the back of the net, and it's an extremely costly mistake. It leads to a tap-in goal for Max Jones, who coincidentally, this was a revelation here. Max Jones, son of Brad Jones, spent parts of 4 seasons, I think 47 games with the Jets in the 1.0 era. So kind of a cool moment for him. And we'll get into the reason why he was actually in the lineup to begin with before the show is over. But it's not on the initial buffet foray here. But the point is, I mean, that's a moment that the Jets have to be sharper in. I mean, there's no mistakes are going to happen. We know this. Logan Stanley's having an excellent offensive season for the Jets. That's a mistake that a team can't make. That's the way it goes. I mean, you can't make that mistake there. So that's a costly error, and it's something that no one can make that mistake in that situation, especially under those circumstances. Leads to the opening goal of the game at a time when the Jets, had a dominant first period. I mean, this goal happens 8 minutes into the second where the Jets are really rolling. They can't get the job done. They can't get rewarded for it. All of a sudden they're chasing the game. And, Jack Roslovic comes into town. Sean, we had a great chat with him in the scrum this morning. I thought Jack showed a lot of maturity in that conversation. And then his game went out and showed some maturity in it as well. The big joke around the NHL is that the top guns are so good. The Oilers don't have a second power play unit, Sean. But today, the second power play unit scored the game-winning goal for the Edmonton Oilers. So at a time we've been talking about improved special teams for the Jets. They were 16 for 16 before giving up the 6-on-4 goal over a 5-game stretch before the Wild tied it up in the Matt Zuccarello goal the other day. So the results have been improving, but the second unit cashes in against them for what proves to be the game winner. And the Jets are unable to score on the power play themselves. So that's another thing that they lost the special teams battle. So yes, they had a better effort, but they had the second best goalie in this game. Their special teams lost 1-0, and they made a tough turnover error that ended up in the back of the net. And that's the difference again. This isn't a 1-goal loss because there's an empty netter, but this was another 1-goal loss essentially for the Jets. And yes, Scott O'Neill's right. Yes, it's against a team that went to Game 7 and Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. The last 2 years, they look like that team, Sean, that you picked to win the Stanley Cup, and they look like a team that is right in the mix of being a real candidate in the Western Conference to come out again. But like we said, there's no moral victories, as Adam Lowry pointed out. But at the same time, the Jets aren't going to say, "Well, screw it, let's just play fire wagon wide open hockey because this isn't working for us," because they're 0-1-1 in those 2 games. I mean, you can't think that way either, because that's the road to ruin if you abandon your system. So, people can argue whether or not the system is working, but again, that's a situation where if you stack that game 10 times in a row, the Jets are probably winning 7 or 8 of those games. But guess what, Sean? They haven't come close to stacking 10 games in a row like that. So you can't just rely on that it's going to happen for them. So they're going to have to find a way to dig deeper and find some of the secondary scoring. They got it today. They got a goal from Adam Lowry, snapping a 17-game drought in game number 800 for him, but it wasn't enough. And the Jets have too many guys in that secondary scoring faculty and department that are not getting the job done right now. And again, if people want to say, "Oh, well, the top line had to produce," Sean, the top line had 27 shot attempts in the game. They had all kinds of chances at 5-on-5 and on the power play. So this was another good game for the Scheifele line, who, as you mentioned to me, Leon Draisaitl looked pretty pedestrian in this game. And you can't say that very often about one of the best players in the league. The Scheifele line was up against them most of the night. And Sean, when a group gets 27 shot attempts, it means you're forcing Draisaitl and his line mates to play in the defensive zone. So that was a strong job on that front. The Lowry line was exceptional. We'll dig into them a little bit deeper, but they set the tone in the game. Adam came out and hammered Matthias Ekholm behind the net. He had 2 or 3 massive hits in the first period, comes through with the big goal. Morgan Barron was a force to be reckoned with in the game again, but they just aren't simply getting enough from 6 to 8 forwards right now, and that's too many. That's too many to not have going at one time. And Sean, it's part of the reason why the Jets are not turning strong efforts into anything other than a point here or there. Like that's 6 wins in 25 games, 6 wins in more than a quarter of the season. That's not going to get the job done.
Yeah. Here a couple of comments here that I'm ready to hand out the Flame and Comfort hot take, the good kind here. This one, and sorry, I don't have my glasses, so I can't read the name. But we only have 13 games to lose to get to 90 points. This to me is a fascinating way of looking at this. Like if you started, because this is kind of where you're at with the Jets, right? Like
Sure.
this is a game tonight where you can look at it and you can say everything you want, but now it's starting to be that thing where every 2 points you don't get is making it harder and harder. It's an obvious statement, but at the same time, looking at it from this perspective of saying your margin of error is essentially losing 13 games. You do that and you can only get to 90 points, which is typically not enough to get you to the playoffs. I think this is a fascinating way of looking at things. And this is, I wanted to go in this direction as well because Scardy, I think, absolutely nails this here when he says the Jets opponents know they can win without their fastball. So it gives the impression the process is improving. I got to say, that's one of the things about this game when I talked about the Jets being unknowable that kind of adds to this because, Ken, I had texted you about it. I thought that, and listen, if you're the Edmonton Oilers, you just want the 2 points, right? And if you get it, you get it. But it didn't look like a game where the Edmonton Oilers came out and thought, my God, we need urgency. We need to get out here. We need to be absolutely at the top of our game. It kind of looked like a game where they're like, yeah, it looks like our goalie's pretty hot. Let's see if we can ride this guy to get through this thing here, right? Like we've seen enough of Connor McDavid. We've seen enough of Leon Draisaitl to know that this was not their A+ games. It wasn't their A games. It's probably not even their B games. And to Scardy's point here, there's been, a lot of times that the Jets have faced the backup goaltender. There's been a lot of times where you'll see teams come in and they're winning games and you're not looking at them and saying, well, holy smokes, that's, the two of the games that they've played against the Dallas Stars this year, Ken, I've thought the same thing, where Dallas didn't really seem to be throwing their best at it, but they're coming away with victories. And there is something to this, I think, in this comment by Scardy that this to me, yeah, the Jets put up the 40 points. Yeah, you can have, the 40 shots. You can have the moral victories. You can have the time of play, time on ice, shutting down those guys and whatever you want to say. But there's goaltender injuries. The Oilers are way down the depth chart when it comes to their goaltenders. Somehow still happens that they get goalied on this night. But beyond that, it's a night where the very top players of the Edmonton Oilers, I thought, had a casualness to their game that suggests to me they haven't quite made their way out of the Christmas break. And it's an opportunity lost in my mind for the Winnipeg Jets on a night like tonight. So for me, that's good examples of the Flame and Comfort hot takes here. And of course, your hot takes brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. When you get down there, you will notice it to be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. Okay, Ken, we got to talk about Connor Hellebuck. Last game, I didn't think he had the same problem that he had last game, where I completely agreed with T. Konopoli that he was just really, really deep in his net, not necessarily cutting down angles. And hey, listen, Connor Hellebuck's done some amazing things over the years. He's built up, goodwill with the fan base. But all the things that were said about Eric Comrie while the Jets were playing without Connor Hellebuck, about, yeah, whatever, he makes this nice save, he does this, he does that, blah, blah, blah. He's still not getting the results. His numbers aren't great, all those different kind of things. All those things can be said about Connor Hellebuck since he came back. And there's one win on his resume since he returned from his surgery. Where do you think Connor Hellebuck is at in his game? Is it time to kind of analyze how he's been playing and maybe ask the question if he's come off his surgery the way that we would expect him to have come off his surgery?
Yeah, I mean, the Roslovic goal is, there's nothing you can do on the Jones goal. The Roslovic goal is on a rebound. It didn't seem like he got out and maybe challenged the way that he wanted to. 7 starts in a row. Some people are saying, oh, you can't run him into the ground. Well, they just came out of the Christmas break. So I don't consider this running Hellebuck into the ground. I'm not seeing any physical limitations that could be related to the knee surgery. But again, I'm not Connor Hellebuck. We spoke with him yesterday. He expressed no concern about how his body was feeling. In terms of the technical side of his game, I'm not a goalie expert. I'm not here to say he's, Connor himself feels like he jumped right back in and to where he was before the injury. So, I would trust his word.
Is
over
that what
mine.
you're seeing?
I'm not seeing as many saves being made, but I'm not. Again, I'm not seeing a ton of muffins go by him, is what I would say. But Sean, if all that people wanted to talk about during the Eric Comrie stint in the net was numbers, well, the numbers don't bear out super well for Hellebuck. He had, today it's 900, but the game before 789, 818, 885, 962, which was an excellent game against the St. Louis Blues, 903 against Ottawa, 960 against Washington. But again, there have been, people were saying, oh, well, Comrie can't be rolling out with a sub 800 save percentage. Well, it's also happening to the other guy. Now, to me, Sean, I would say that has, less to do with the quality of play for Hellebuck than, the chances the Jets are giving up. But the issue with just saying it's that simple or simplistic is that Scott O'Neill told us again today that the Jets aren't giving up. Now, the quality of, even though they're limiting the chances to lower than 10 against high octane teams like Minnesota and Edmonton, being in that 7 or 8 ranges means you're playing pretty strongly defensively, but breakaways and backdoor taps, those are still happening. So anyways, I don't think that Connor Hellebuck is playing at a Hart Trophy level by any stretch. I don't think he's playing terrible. But again, the Jets need Connor Hellebuck to be their best player. And tonight he was not their best player. So in a game where the Jets did a ton of things right in terms of limiting the opposition, and of course Hellebuck has an impact on limiting Draisaitl and McDavid. Of course, that's part of it. But today he was not their best player. And again, I'm not saying he has to put them on their back and carry them and make 41 saves like Calvin Pickard did. But right now, Connor Hellebuck is like a lot of the Jets. He's not at his peak performance level. And if the Jets want to go on a 5, 6, 7 game winning streak to get themselves back in the playoff race, Hellebuck needs to be better. But again, that can be said for, 75 to 85% of the Jets right now. But I'm not seeing a ton of technical things wrong with his game. But again, the facts are that there aren't as many saves happening right now. The Rosovic goal is a great example. It's a good shot for sure, and it comes on a rebound. But Sean, how many times have we talked about this? We see it in practice. Connor Hellebuck doesn't like to get beat by anything. If that goal goes by Connor Hellebuck from Mark Scheifele in practice, he's probably banging his stick against the post when that happens, right?
Oh, yeah. The one thing I'm saying in this is that, and again, it's kind of the same thing with Eric Comrie. So when Eric Comrie was in the net, and I was saying, I thought that the one thing the Jets, and I touched on it at the beginning of the show, the Jets are playing a far superior brand of hockey ahead of Connor Hellebuck, right, than they were with Eric Comrie. If you think back to, that one Monday night prime game that they played against Buffalo, which was just an absolute no-show, like not a very good game at all. They're playing a better brand of hockey. I would have expected that would have been enough to see the wins. Now, for the most part, when we talked about Comrie and we were like, basically, and I'll say defending him, because a lot of what I didn't like about it is a lot of the fan base I felt were just trying to say, this is it. It's simple. There's nothing wrong with the Jets. It's all Eric Comrie. Right. And it's all Eric Comrie's fault, which puts you into this pattern where you're defending, well, this shot goes in, and like, show me the bad goal, right? Show me that, the backdoor tap in or the pass across the ice one-timer that he's facing, the degree of difficulty is going up. Show me the bad goal. But at some point, in the NHL, you got to be that goaltender. A team needs that goaltender who's going to make kind of the outlandish saves. And that's what I don't believe that we're seeing from Connor Hellebuck right now. Like that, first of all, that first shot that goes in the net there, usually Connor Hellebuck is we would have talked about, a play like that happening in the past, and the puck getting saved in that moment, people would have said, well, it's big and boring Hellebuck, always in the right position.
Sure.
Always, those pucks don't go in on Hellebuck because he's just fundamentally sound. And yet that one finds its way. And is there an excuse for it going in? For sure there is. Giveaway behind the net. The problem is with the giveaway, but it feels like Connor Hellebuck of the past would have stopped that shot typically. And the next one is you give a guy time, you give a guy space, he's going to pick a goaltender apart. I don't fault Connor Hellebuck for the goals that are going in, but in a time where everyone out there was telling me Eric Comrie is the problem and Connor Hellebuck is going to come back and he's going to steal games for the Winnipeg Jets, that is not happening. And the one win that he has was a win that his team went out and kicked the crap out of the team that they were playing. And he faced 2 shots in the first period. And the degree of difficulty was extremely low for Connor Hellebuck in that game. So the version of Connor Hellebuck that everyone was saying was going to come back, and that my issue with people saying that wasn't the version of Connor Hellebuck that the Jets were getting before he got injured, before he went for surgery. And what's come back is kind of, to me, the same version of Connor Hellebuck as the one right before he left. The one that, if you think about back on that California road trip, that it's not his fault. I'm not pointing a finger and saying the Jets are losing games because of Connor Hellebuck, although the last game that they played against the Minnesota Wild, the numbers aren't good enough. You got to get to better numbers than that, but there is no doubt about it. No one can be out there. Like someone here tried to say, oh, are they getting blown out of games with Connor Hellebuck in there? That's just someone who's not watching. Like if you're trying to assign that all to Connor Hellebuck and not realizing that the Jets are playing a better brand of hockey when they're out shooting the Edmonton Oilers 40-20 or whatever it is, if you can't see in that the Jets aren't playing a better system, I don't know what to tell you. But at the same time here, the version of Connor Hellebuck that won a Hart Trophy, the version of Connor Hellebuck that won 3 Vezina trophies, the version of Connor Hellebuck who would get Hellebuck wins for the Winnipeg Jets, he's not anywhere near that standard right now. I want to see Comrie back in the net, Ken. Like, it's since he's been out, I think it's a chance to give Comrie a little bit of a piece and try and give the backup a chance again to try and affect things. He's been rested for a while. I don't think it played well for Comrie to have played like a starter. It was too much for him. Started eroding his game, but I think he's done a good job of coming in and playing well. At this stage right now, they're riding, in my opinion, Connor Hellebuck too hard. Maybe they're trying to wake him up, but at some point, I think you got to give the backup a chance to try and come in and steal 2 points to see if you can't get that juju back into the room for the team, because it's not happening right now with Connor Hellebuck.
Well, I mean, Hellebuck can't solve the Jets' secondary scoring issues either, right? I mean, and I know you're not putting this all at his feet by any stretch. And we're going to see Comrie.
You're right.
We're going to see Comrie on Wednesday, or sorry, whatever day it's going to be, Thursday against Toronto is my guess. I think we're going to see Hellebuck in Detroit against the Red Wings. Yeah. I mean, home state, all of those things. And yeah, I mean, the Leafs are talking about this too, with Stolarz being out, and they're probably going to have to play Hildeby. You know, I was listening to pal Elliot Friedman today. Hildeby's either playing against the Jets or the Islanders. So there's a good chance the January 1st game is going to be battle of the backups, or in this case, backup versus the third stringer. And yeah, I mean, Comrie deserves to get back into it. Just quickly, I mean, Eric, I think he was dealing with some flu bug issues here over the holidays. So I think it's likely to be January 1st against Toronto. And agreed. I mean, he deserves another chance to get back in there, and we know he's going to get games. It's a busy stretch of time. This 5-week block into the Olympic break, Jets aren't going to just run Hellebuck into the ground. But I don't see any fatigue for Hellebuck. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly, he's played better at certain times. But I just think that the Jets have a lot of other issues, and I would put goaltending very low down the list in terms of what their issues are. I think their secondary scoring is still a massive problem. I mean, there hasn't been enough happening outside of that Washington game. And yes, there's been nights where the chances are there and being generated, but they're not being generated consistently enough. And Sean, you nailed it right out of the beginning. I mean, the Jets took Draisaitl and McDavid essentially almost out of the game at 5-on-5. McDavid had 1 shot on goal and 5 attempts, and Leon Draisaitl had 1 shot on goal and 6 attempts. So, I mean, they got an empty net goal, sure. But I mean, fourth line goal from Max Jones, who wasn't even supposed to be playing, and a goal from Jack Roslovic on the power play. So, I mean, their secondary scoring came through and the Jets didn't. And that's another big issue. And it's been an issue for, the better part of 38 games now. So to me, that's a more glaring issue that I think the Jets need to get sorted out. And, I understand it's a tough thing. I mean, fans want to see changes immediately. Well, it's hard to be saying, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth saying, well, the Jets just played two of their best games, and now suddenly you're going to be making a ton of changes now.
Yeah.
So it's a tough balance, right? I mean, but there's other things at play here. There's no doubt. And just quickly, I mean, I'm just going to say this. Well, Max Jones was in the lineup for Andrew Mangiapane, who, has not had a great start with the Oilers, but I think he's got 5 goals and 11 points and was supposed to be playing on the fourth line today. And, the reports now are that his agent has been given permission to seek a potential trade. And the only reason I bring this up on the show is because the Jets were one of the teams courting Andrew Mangiapane in the summertime. The Leafs were another one of the teams. He ended up signing with Edmonton, got a 2-year deal. But for a team that has been struggling to get offensive production from secondary scorers, I wonder if the Jets may reconsider Mangiapane. But now the issue is too, I mean, he hasn't been playing at the top of his game. Otherwise, he'd be playing higher up in the Oilers lineup. So, and he also has 1 more year left on the deal. So again, I'm not saying this is a cure-all, but for the folks saying make a trade, I wonder if that's something the Jets would be considering. Now, it would have to be a creative trade because the Oilers don't have room and they'd love to get some salary cap room. They'd love to trade Mangiapane for, say Colin Miller, who's making a lot less money and maybe brings in a experienced guy to be a 7th defenseman. But I mean, or what are the Jets? Would they prefer to move, the type of move Stan Bowman has been making is moving guys out that have term for guys that have a year left. So with that in mind, Sean, Gus Nyquist has 1 year at 3.25. Mangiapane, I think, is 2 at around $4 million. I double checked, but I mean, maybe that's something they consider. Nyquist playing a little bit better. Maybe he's the 12th or 13th forward. They move out the second year of Mangiapane, then they clear out the money for later on. Though, again, I think Bowman would prefer to move him for, Colin Miller or Hayden Fleury, who are making a lot less money. But anyways, it's just something that I'm curious about at a time where we wonder if there's going to be a deal around the corner. If a player the Jets were interested in previously becomes available, you wonder if they're kicking the tires there and what the price tag is and things like that.
Well, you got to do something to wake up the second line scoring because it's quite honestly the biggest issue they've got going on here. And of course, that means it's time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You can give him a call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call, folks. You will be glad that you did. I wanted to touch on that. I get the mistakes thing, right? I get the last game, Nino Niederreiter makes that mistake, and it's this kind of razor's edge thing that is falling here. But it's like, if you're playing the game constantly on the razor's edge, mistakes are going to happen and they're going to be highlighted, right? Well, if I didn't make that mistake, that wouldn't have happened. Max Jones, when we talked to him in the room afterwards, Ken, who scores that goal, also says, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of pissed off because I turned over the puck when it ended up in the back of our net, right? So you can sit there and you can be like, well, the Jets made a mistake and that's why they lost the game, but the Jets got on the board because a player from the Edmonton Oilers made a mistake. Like, mistakes are going to happen. I just think that the one thing that we keep seeing here that's difficult and tricky for the Jets is that when you end up being that team that mistake caught us, that just means that you're not good enough. It just means that good teams will overcome those mistakes, right? We did this. We ended up down 2. We came back. The Winnipeg Jets of last year would not have walked away and lost a game because Logan Stanley lost the handle on a puck and the first goal of the game is scored. That's not what happened. The Winnipeg Jets of last year wouldn't have lost a game because Nino Niederreiter went offside. Now, were they making those kind of mistakes as often? I don't think they were, but I think now when you're in a situation where every mistake that you make ends up being glaring if it ends up in the back of your net, because it's so hard to score that it's just now the degree of difficulty has gone up so much. I just think at this stage, the inability for this team to score and to get more offense, and Scott Arniel said it before this game, like the idea of like turning a 1-goal lead into a 2-goal lead, a 2-goal lead into a 3-goal lead. That's the thing that the Winnipeg Jets aren't doing anymore. So everything is white knuckle at every moment. And when you're playing white knuckle, more mistakes are going to happen. So it's interesting because I've been dwelling on the idea of the Jets making more mistakes this year. And are they? Like, I even wonder if they are. They look like they are. They look like they are, but when every mistake ends up in the back of your net or it ends up being something that costs you a game, I guess I would ask it like this. How many games that the Winnipeg Jets played last year would have been decided in the opposite direction if they'd made a mistake that ended up with the puck in the back of their net?
Well, yeah, and again, I don't have that data, but I mean, you ran the stats when you had it on the broadcast about the environment, right? The environment just isn't the same as it was last year. Yes. They're spending way more time in their own end, and they're giving up more chances. And I mean, all those things are accurate. So,
right.
I'm not saying the Jets made no mistakes last year, but I mean, Sean, we remember. I mean, John Cooper, when the Jets rolled into Tampa, John Cooper at the morning skate was going out of his way in vintage John Cooper fashion, saying the Jets don't beat themselves. Now that night, I think they maybe did beat themselves, and that was like during their stretch in November, where after the crazy start, they kind of went back to being a 500 team for that stretch a lot of the time without Dylan Sandberg. But yeah, I mean, they're making more mistakes, but they're being compounded because they're not able to outscore their mistakes. Sean, I think that's also part of the equation.
That's entirely the point that I'm trying to make, is that in the end, hockey's about scoring goals. When you don't score goals now, it looks like that's it. Because I don't look at tonight and I don't look and think that the Jets made mistakes that cost them the game, that the Jets beat themselves. There's a lot of teams out there. Remember, I don't know. I don't see it that way, Ken. Like what I see is a team beating itself with mistakes. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but that second game that Buffalo came rolling into town, and they kept making these changes where they would just turn their back to the play and lose the situational awareness. Like, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing a give out from a player. Hey, it's hockey. The ice is hard. The puck is vulcanized rubber. It's going to bounce sometimes. It's going to come off your stick. I don't look at this and think that mistake. And put it this way: if you're trying to tell me that the Jets beat themselves on this night because early in the second period, a guy lost a handle on the puck and it ended up in the back of their net, and they can't possibly win that game, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. There's plenty of time to get over it. There's plenty of time to move past that. I don't see a Winnipeg Jets team that is beating itself in a la John Cooper talking about them. I don't see a Jets team beating themselves. I see a team now that every mistake seems to cost them because they can't and this isn't even an outscore your mistakes. It's just you can't score. So when you make a mistake, now you're starting in the negative part of the chart, and it's just too much for them to overcome.
Yeah, no. And again, this is not about fault. And again, Logan Stanley obviously didn't want that to happen, and there should have been better communication, as Tracy O mentions. But to me, Sean, my counter is, when's the last time an opponent passed the puck in front of the net to a Jets player for an empty net goal? I don't recall the last time the Jets had an empty net chance like that. So
empty net chance?
Well, essentially an empty net chance. I mean, passed in front of Jones and he scores. When's the last time the Jets got a goal that way?
Well, I mean, it's on the same side that the goalie's on. He's hugging the post. It's not an empty net goal. This isn't like a I don't know, man. I think we're making too much out of the mistakes that are made. Mistakes are going to happen in hockey. And you are right, Ken.
And I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying I don't remember the last time the Jets got a goal like that.
Yeah, they got 4 billion of them last year. Like
Right.
everything went their way last year,
For
and
sure.
it's not happening this year. But you did touch on it, and you did nail it, Ken. It's just the balance of how they used to cram the game down the opposition's throat meant when mistakes were being made, it was made by the opposition. It was made in the offensive zone, and that's how the Jets capitalized. So I mean, I don't know. Part of it is they're having to defend more, so they make mistakes more often, because when you defend, that's when mistakes are made. And I don't know. I don't see a mistake-prone team. I know the last couple of games that it's played a role, but it's played a role because they cannot score. They could against the Wild, they could not get that next goal to make it a two goal lead, and then now the other team needs to open up their risk profile. Like, here's something. When's the last time a team had to play the Winnipeg Jets and open up their risk profile to get back into the game, to take chances, to get out of their structure to try and score? And then you capitalize on that team because you get the puck now. They're in a bad spot. No one's ever in a bad spot against the Winnipeg Jets because they're always in the game against the Winnipeg Jets. It's what I'd said about like this being a delicate ecosystem. When it kind of turns in that little bit of a direction, everything just turns to the point where it gets opportunities grow and grow and grow and grow for your opposition, and now things get tougher and tougher and tougher for you on your side of things. I just it's had me thinking about these mistakes that are made, and I don't see the Jets as a team that beats themselves. The problem for me is still more that it's not a Jets team that can create enough for itself to be winning games.
Totally fair. And again, just to reiterate, again, I'm not blaming Logan Stanley here by any stretch. I'm just saying that is the type of play the Jets' ferocious forecheck from last year was inflicting on teams. This year, they're not forcing those kinds of turnovers or the chaos or any of those other things that we saw so frequently. And again, I get it. We're not, it's almost game 40. This is not last year. We know this. But in terms of analyzing where things are going sideways for the Jets, they're just not playing the type of game that forces opponents into mistakes and causes as many turnovers and leads to zone time and leads to scoring chances and leads to more goals. And until they do that, as well as they're playing defensively, they have to generate more while not cheating for offense, which again, Sean, this is a difficult thing to do for teams. And again, we're not just saying that to throw rose-colored glasses on. It's a fact. If you, first of all, it's hard to defend. When you put in that effort on defending, that helps lead to offense. That's true. But the Jets aren't as crisp defensively, and they're not creating as much as they need, or not as much as they need to offensively. And special teams aren't bailing them out the way they did in that during that 9-3 start that you referenced. Yeah. And again, Hellebuck was out of his mind in those games, and Eric Comrie was also excellent in his starts during the first 12. So again, it's not an easy fix. I mean, that's part of the issue, and the whole thing with process versus results. I mean, it's a results-oriented business. We know that, but the Jets also can't afford to abandon the process. But they have to be, execute a little bit better at the offensive end of the ice. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be a challenge to score goals.
I thought they were going to get through with the shot volume tonight. I thought the shot volume was going to get them on the other side of it. Didn't get them there, but we'll see if they keep that up. You can shoot for growth with Cambrian Wealth. Grow your wealth today to reach tomorrow's big goals. Cambrian's Wealth team can assist. Invest in your future self your way. Our pals at Cambrian Wealth give straight up investing advice you can actually understand and help you make a strong financial play to get there. Book an appointment at cambrian.mb.ca. Ken, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
Right on. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
I don't want to reopen the whole JT taking the draw debate that happened last show, because it kept going in my mentions and my messages afterwards for a long, long time. I did notice JT lost, because that's not his strong side, lost a draw in that corner, that same corner that everyone was so sure that he was going to win the. And here was my other part of that we didn't talk much about. That the last goal of this game that the Edmonton Oilers scores comes off a draw in which Jonathan Toews is taking the draw, and he somewhat wins it back, but it's a contested puck. Yeah. he wins it back, but it's a contested puck and the Oilers get it. Like,
Yep.
whole thing about that argument last show about, he's just going to win it. Everyone in their mind is thinking he's winning a perfectly clean draw straight to the stick of someone and getting it out, and forgetting the fact that it's a 6-on-4 and that contested pucks, the advantage goes to the team with more players. And even if he does get it back, there's more opportunity for the 6 players on the ice, the 2-man advantage, to get in and interrupt it. And if you don't get the clear, now you're in trouble. All those kind of things. I don't know where I've. Sorry, I got thinking about Morgan Barron. I wanted to talk about Morgan Barron is what I wanted to do. I was going to joke and say there's a lot of things that our chat room seems to get wrong. One thing they sure look to have right, Ken, because it's over and over called for in our chat room, that Morgan Barron needs more opportunity. I thought Morgan Barron was one of the best players on the ice for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. I think he rang one off the bar, gave himself a lot of opportunities. Like, here's a player that is just continually giving himself a chance over and over and over again. The chat room has been calling for it. They've been right to do so, in my mind.
Morgan Barron was tremendous in the game. 1 assist. I would have liked to have seen more ice time. 20 shifts for 13:37. He had 3 shots on net, 5 attempts, 4 hits in the game. Yeah. So, I mean, again, my feelings on this are the same. I know a lot of people in the chat room want Morgan Barron as the second line winger. I stand by what I've been saying for weeks. Morgan Barron's biggest place to have an impact is not for me at 2C. It's on the line with Adam Lowry.
Yeah.
The Adam Lowry line, the checking line,
you nailed it.
The checking plus line, that is what they need to be doing with Morgan Barron. That is what they are doing. I feel like Morgan Barron, since moving back with Lowry, Lowry's played some of the best hockey of his season. Together, I've mentioned this before the arrival of Nino Niederreiter, Morgan Barron was a solid player on a line with Adam Lowry. I think that was the year he had 12 goals. He's a guy that can do more for you. He has an offensive edge to his game. He plays a physical brand of hockey, power forward type of game. Said this before. I think he's the kind of guy that could push to be a 15 plus goal scorer. And yes, that's easier to do in a second line center role. I'm not opposed to it, but right now with the Jets, their identity line needs to play like their identity line. And when they do, it opens up other options and better matchups for other skilled players who are currently not producing the way that we're used to seeing them. I'm talking about Vlad Nemestikov and Cole Perfetti and some of those other guys. When the Lowry line is going and when Barron is on it, that group is helping others out, and those other players are not chipping in the offense that is required from them right now. Now, again, like I said, I'm totally fine if they want to try the other thing, but I think that they should keep those guys together and see where it goes from there. But again, I understand why other people would feel that other way. I mean, it's natural. I mean, like I said, Morgan Barron, I'm pro Morgan Barron for more ice time. I mean, I've been that way for a long time.
So I think you nailed it. I think you absolutely nailed it. And you've been saying this. I love to give you credit when you do things right, Ken. And this is one of these things that you talked about early was Barron going with Lowry, because I think it's really bringing out, the kind of beast in both those players. Woke Lowry up a little bit tonight. You touched on it at the beginning of the show, Lowry, and I texted you, went right at Ekholm right off the bat. And I thought that was like his way of going out and setting the tone. Like I thought those two working off each other really did kind of help set the tone. I think Morgan Barron's got an offense to his game that grows off of the type of game that Lowry plays. And I think it satisfies, Ken, just something that we haven't talked nearly enough about on this podcast. I don't think it's been a big enough conversation in the city of Winnipeg, but the loss of the best third line in the NHL. Like last year and the year before that, the Winnipeg Jets third line was in the running as being the best third line in the NHL, and they punished teams that came in here, and they made everything a battle of attrition night in and night out. If you were coming in to play Winnipeg, you knew it was going to be really tough. And even if the rest of the team wasn't going, that third line was so good at doing that it was going to be a miserable night to play the Winnipeg Jets. They're not miserable to play against anymore. This to me is kind of like the fastest path to maybe getting back to that and having a little bit of that. And you touched on it. That line goes up against, so not only do they score, but they go up against Connor McDavid, who's like on the historic pace right now, and made him look fairly pedestrian. Again, I don't think he had his top game, but you got to give credit where it's due and how they shut things down. Chat room was right to be calling for more Morgan Barron further up the lineup. Ken was right talking about putting them back with Lowry. I think if you give a little bit more runway to that, okay, I guess as you're sitting there and you're Scott Arniel and you're trying to find the different things to get this offense ignited and get it working, it just seems like, we used to joke about the Paul Maurice line blender. Like, the blender has not turned off. Hey, Scheifele and Connor don't get put into that blender, but everything else is just a massive jumble over and over and over again. I think that the Jets can find a little bit more consistency within the lineup if they take those two players and they kind of lock them together the way they have Scheifele and Connor. And then at least you've got kind of two pillars of stability that you can start moving things around to try and find something else. And then if you could get even a second line going that, hey, I know we need more, or the Jets need more scoring, but if you can get a line that is hard to play against, miserable to play against, kind of add that back into things for the Jets. Well, then now if you want to go make some move, add some guys in, or see if you can't get guys sparked, then you're building from someplace. So you got kind of half of your offense going at that stage. So I think that's something that should be left alone. Those two players should spend some time together going forward now. They're doing a good job of covering it. I think, so, you're going to give Morgan Barron more of a chance to impact the game offensively, and we know how they can impact the game with those big bodies and that size. And we also know that it would be a huge impact on you and your pharmaceutical needs if you'd go down and see the folks at Myers Drugs. They're the people you want taking care of all of your pharmaceutical needs, health food needs, supplemental needs, and they deliver anywhere in the city of Winnipeg. So give them a call. You're in the city limits. You don't even have to get off your couch. They'll bring it right to you, folks. Go visit the folks at Myers Drugs. Okay, Ken. Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. You've got a good one for that.
Yeah, there were a lot of good ones, and a lot of them involving Dylan Samberg. He prevented Zach Hyman from getting a breakaway, and I'm pretty sure it was him. It was also his diving play on Connor McDavid for me. McDavid was going full speed, and yes, this was a oh crap moment for the defenseman who knew if he didn't lay out that McDavid was probably going in alone, but didn't matter because Samberg was able to knock the puck off of his stick at speed when it looked like he might be beat. So those are my two stick taps for Dylan Samberg, who, again, speaking of guys rounding into form, I thought that pairing with Neil Pionk was superb this evening.
Samberg, we didn't talk about enough, and I texted you earlier on. He was great tonight. He stood out to me all night. Seemed to kind of really take the challenge seriously. I think you touched on it, the breaking up the potential breakaway pass to Hyman. But the trick to that McDavid trick is letting McDavid think that he's got you beat, right? Because I looked in that moment, and what he did was, McDavid is so good that if you are fighting to try and get to that puck, he's guarding the puck, he's keeping it away, he outlasts you, and then he's gone. What he did there was he goes and basically baits him into thinking it's done, he's past him, and then just does the dive and the chip off the stick. It's a more cerebral play than it may have looked, and very, very worthy, Ken, of the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, our hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, there were a ton of saves made by Calvin Pickert, who, was happy enough to have, I think, family dinner yesterday, belated Christmas dinner. No turkey on the menu, but he mentioned to the reporters that were on that side, and you were down there, Sean. I mean,
I asked him the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It was, ham, meatballs, Caesar salad, a Pickard special. And Sean, I'm going to pick a save that was very reminiscent of Connor Hellebuck. Many of the saves that he's made over the years, we talked about the big and boring. He made a ridiculous save off Kyle Connor that we weren't sure if it actually hit him in the mask or not. It actually caught him in the shoulder, but Pickard, it was a slot shot, grade A chance. Pickard made himself big, shrugged the shoulders, and instead of going in top bunk, he got a piece of it. It went over the net. And, Kyle Connor had an excellent game in terms of generation. Sean, I mentioned it earlier. 9 shots on net and 12 shot attempts. Like, just a ridiculous volume and quality of shots that he generated. And I thought that save by Pickard was the best of many really good saves that he had in that end. And Sean, for the folks who are unfamiliar, Calvin Pickard is fighting for his NHL job right now. His goals against is just under 4. Save percentage is sub 900. Connor Ingram has come up from Bakersfield with the injury to Tristan Jarry. There's a ton of pressure on Pickard, and he came up with his best game as of the year. And you got to give a guy credit when he does that. It's got to be special to do in your hometown. There were tons of Oilers jerseys in the crowd. Many of those people either are family members, friends, or know Calvin Pickard, and they let him know what they thought of him being the first star of the game, and he's deserving of the keg save of the game this evening.
Yeah, I'll go with that. That's good enough for me. And it doesn't really matter, though, if it's good enough for me. Matters if it's good enough for you. We want to hear from you. You tell us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be Alex99. Alex99, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, I'm off to Detroit for the New Year's game. The Winnipeg Jets will be playing against first look at Mason Appleton, folks.
Yep.
I think he was
big goal on Sunday against Toronto.
There you go. And Ben Sherratt for all the
Andrew Kopp.
Yeah. Jack Roslovic tonight. It's starting to get to be that time, like I remember at the beginning when you were just, the Jets were back in 2011. It was just like when you actually played like a former Jet, it was like, oh my God, they'd come rolling into town. And you'd like, as a reporter, you'd be going and talking about because there weren't a lot of those guys. Now you're just at that stage where it's like ex-Jets all over the league and rolling back into town and burning you like Jack Roslovic did tonight, or seeing each other again for the first time like they will when they play the Detroit Red Wings and Mason Appleton and Andrew Kopp and all the guys. Anyways, that's the next game we have coming up. We hope you join us at that time. Before you do go, though, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we would implore you to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group, and of course the fine folks at the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Ken, anything to say before we go?
Yeah, we should just weigh in quickly. By the time we're having our next show, Team Canada will be unveiled at Minneapolis St. Paul at the World Juniors. For me, Josh Morrissey is a lock, and we've talked about this a lot. And I would personally have Mark Scheifele on Team Canada if I were Doug Armstrong and company. But the lack of a buzz surrounding Mark Scheifele right now, despite his outstanding point totals in the season that he's having in over 2 years, would have me concerned if I were Mark Scheifele. It's my long-winded way of saying that unless something changes in the next 24 hours, I think he's on the outside looking in. Again, that doesn't mean he can't be added as an injury replacement. And again, I'm not certain that that's the case. I don't have any insider knowledge on this, but the fact that his name isn't generating the same type of buzz as guys like Nick Suzuki and some of the other guys, obviously Macklin Celebrini, we both expect he'll be on the team. But again, at this stage, I don't think Mark is going to be named. But again, if he is named, and I'm very clear about this, I think he deserves to be on the team. His body of work over the last 2 years has been exceptional. But right now, it'll be interesting to see what happens on the morning of the 31st.
Yeah, I think I'm and everyone knows my take last year and my whole line about, I wasn't wrong, Team Canada was wrong and all that kind of stuff. I take a look at this and I think that the age thing works against him, because if you go and you're taking a chance on every player. if you take a chance on Mark Scheifele and you bring Mark Scheifele, what are you doing it for? What's the payoff at the end? Are you getting a player who you have now, and then when he's 36, turning 37, is he going to be doing this at the next Olympics? That's one factor I think goes against him. And the one thing that I just think for me, Ken, that has really landed, and I understand it. I understand the argument. When you take a look in the stats department and top 10 in scoring, you're going to see Mark Scheifele is right there with Kyle Connor. They're tied. And then when you see when it comes to the amount of goals they've scored, Gabe Vilardi's right there. Mark Scheifele plays with, and it was talked about tonight by Chris Knobloch, the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. It's one of the best lines in the league, right? You take a look and you see the Edmonton Oilers come rolling in here tonight, and Leon Draisaitl is trying to figure it out with a couple new line mates this year, right? Like he's done year after year, and he played a little bit with Jack Rosvik. And yes, do they put them out for the nuclear option here and there? Yes, they do. But all of these guys are playing with different players. They're being asked to kind of shoulder the load in a way. And I do think that in the end, one of the things that will have hurt Mark Scheifele, not just this year, but over the years is, and I know a lot of fans out there don't like it, and they've been asking for them to be split up, and they've been asking for Kyle Connor to get on a line and drive a line, and Mark Scheifele to get on a line and drive a line. It's too difficult if you're Team Canada to look at Mark Scheifele and understand what Mark Scheifele is as a hockey player when he's not playing with Kyle Connor. There's little examples here and there. He did a World Championships. He did great. I'm not saying that we haven't seen it before, but no two forwards have spent more time on the ice together since in almost the last decade than Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. And if you're Team Canada and you need to worry about chemistry and building fast chemistry, what you've got is an example of a guy who's great with some of the oldest, most long-term chemistry that exists in the entire NHL. And what does that player look like without that? You don't know. And that's the problem for Team Canada, is they want to remove as many unknowables as they can. They want to take a player that they know they're going to get this, they're going to get this, they're going to get this, they're going to get this. You do not know what Mark Scheifele looks like without Kyle Connor, because they play together all the time. And I think that that's a problem for him. And in the end, I personally think, Ken, that's what will make it so that he does not make Team Canada. So I think we're in agreement there. Maybe we and Jets fans will get a surprise in the end. Anything to say before we go, Ken?
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on our show. Thanks for not checking out.
Your name is the first name in the show. Your name is the first name in the show.
Thanks for not checking out.
There is no Kenny and Renny without Kenny.
The opening drive.
Right. No problem. Okay, folks. Good to see you all. Looking forward to doing it again as we try and close it out. We'll try and get you to your New Year's celebration after that game. Looking forward to spending more time with you. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.